I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the Indian Prime Minister has a jam-packed first day in the Holy Land. The Israeli Environmental Protection Ministry releases a troubling new report, and we'll reveal why the Israeli NBA star Omri Casspi is giving us yet another reason to cheer. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. The Prime Minister of India arrived in Israel yesterday, and he's getting the full VIP treatment from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. On his first full day in Israel, Netanyahu accompanied Narendra Modi on a spontaneous trip to the grave of the early Zionist leader Theodore Herzl, plus a lengthy visit to Yad Vashem and the Holocaust Memorial. Modi was visibly affected by the experience.
Yad Vashem tells us that those who believe in humanity and civilized values must come together and defeat it at all costs. As such, we must resolutely oppose the evils of terrorism, radicalism, and violence that plague our time.
Netanyahu says it's a new era for Israel and Indian relations. He's had close personal relations with Modi since 2014, but aside from that, he's pointing to the country's shared values as a reason for closer ties.
Prime Minister, we share a bond of democracy and creativity, a deep respect for the past, a boundless optimism for the future. And it's in this spirit, my friend Narendra, in this spirit of close cooperation and deepest friendship, that I welcome you here to our home in Jerusalem. Welcome, friend.
Thank you.
Of course, another thing that brings Israel and India closer together is shared threats. Among other things, Modi came to Israel to sign some major defense deals, and before the Netanyahu-Modi honeymoon ever began, the two nations were already cooperating on security issues.
Alongside building a partnership for shared economic prosperity, we are also cooperating to secure our societies against common threats such as terrorism. A progressive partnership in all these areas would shape the scope of my conversation with Prime Minister, my friend Netanyahu.
Israeli President Reuven Rivlin returned similar words of praise for the visiting diplomat as well.
I say, with the all respect that I have and the pleasure that I have, that you are one of the greatest leaders of the democracies in the world in this time. And we appreciate very much your visit to Israel. We have a lot in common. We are doing a lot in common. We understood very well your thoughts about the need to have partners who will make in India.
Now here's something interesting. As a final surprise for the day, Israel announced that the state is honoring Modi by naming a new flower after the Indian Prime Minister himself. A white chrysanthemum developed right here at a farm near Tel Aviv. We've been hearing rumors about a new political arrangement in the Gaza Strip that could sideline the Palestinian Authority, but Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is not having it. He's traveling to Cairo for urgent talks with the Egyptian president. The PA's envoy to Egypt says the meeting between Abbas and Abdel Fattah el-Sisi will cover the Palestinian issue in all of its aspects, as well as a dangerous escalation in settlements in East Jerusalem and the rest of the Palestinian territories. But the elephant in the room is the developments in Gaza. It sounds like former Fatah leader Mohammed Dakhlan will be returning to the Gaza Strip. Dakhlan has been a longtime rival to Abbas, but he's been exiled from Palestinian territory since 2011. He was accused of having murdered the former PLO leader Yasser Arafat by the Palestinian president Mahmoud Abbas himself. Dahlan's loyalist Samir Mashwari has returned to Gaza as announced by a Hamas newspaper. Reportedly, Dahlan's people and Hamas are reaching an agreement where Hamas will govern Gaza internally, while a new committee of Hamas members and Dahlan loyalists will handle international relations. This could put a real wrench in Abbas's plans to force Hamas to relinquish the Gaza Strip through economic pressure. UNESCO has passed yet another resolution condemning Israeli presence in the Old City in East Jerusalem, and the Israeli Foreign Ministry is outraged. ILTV's Aaron Ports has more on the story. Now, Aaron, what is so outrageous about this?
So the resolution, which was brought forth by Jordan, calls Israel the occupying power of the Old City and claims that, quote, the persistent excavations, tunneling, and other illegal practices in East Jerusalem jeopardize the safety of the Old City and its walls. Undoubtedly, Israeli officials are quite upset by this and by these allegations, and they're responding with their own allegations of hypocrisy and slander. So
let's check out your report.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's Fatah party is calling the resolution a form of historic justice. Meanwhile, the Israeli Foreign Ministry, however, is expressing contempt for the bizarre and irrelevant decision. The Foreign Ministry's statement says that, quote, UNESCO is acting on behalf of the enemies of history and the truth. It is sad, unnecessary, and pathetic, end quote. The statement also makes special effort to note that the resolution in question failed to get a majority of votes. UNESCO is set to vote on another controversial resolution about the Old City of Hebron soon, and the Israeli government has already been equally forceful in rejecting the legitimacy of the UN organization's initiative there. Just last weekend, during a 2-day UN panel on the Israeli occupation, Israeli ambassador to the UN Dani Danon called for UNESCO and any other anti-Israel UN body to be dissolved.
Yesterday, the UNESCO World Heritage Committee met in Krakow, Poland to disavow Israeli sovereignty over the city of Jerusalem. Later this week, UNESCO is expected to meet again on Friday to determine if Hebron's Old City and the tomb of the patriarch should be added onto the World Heritage Sites in Danger list at the behest of the Palestinian Authority. Joining me now in the studio to discuss Jerusalem's political future is Dr. Mordechai Kedar, who served for 25 years in the IDF military intelligence and is an expert in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
So let's begin. Does UNESCO's latest ruling on Israeli sovereignty over Jerusalem ignore the Jewish connection to the city?
Altogether. Because they are actually driven by the Arab agenda and by Qatari money, which funnels, operates in UNESCO. And I think that the next head of UNESCO will be from Qatar. So you can understand already what motivates this organization. However, they are in charge of the heritage. Heritage is here. I have here 2 maps which were published by the Jordanians before we Jews liberated Jerusalem in 1967. This is one from 1963, and this is even earlier from 1961. In both maps, the Temple Mount is depicted as Mount Moriah, and this is a guide to the West Bank. This is official map of the Jordanians. Mount Moriah, no less. And other parts of Jerusalem which they show Hezekiah's tunnel and David's city, town of David. You know, all the biblical parts of Jerusalem, because those in the 60s, they didn't see yet that Israel will liberate, and so they had no problem to associate Jerusalem with the Bible. Today, after we liberated Jerusalem, all of a sudden they forgot. You know, in Arabic they say liars should have good memory. Apparently, when you see today, the maps of today, they have very bad memory because they themselves, the Jordanians, who are not Jews, who are not Zionists, had no problem during the 60s to associate Jerusalem with the Bible.
So,
today they deny it.
Well, what do you think the significance of the upcoming vote concerning Hebron is going to be?
It has a significance of like a rolling ball, which might be accelerated by other organizations, because don't forget that UNESCO is considered one of the most honorable units or organizations which are affiliated with the United Nations. And it makes public opinion, and it creates all kinds of confidence within Israel's bashers and haters to continue the pressure on Israel and on the Jews and Jewish people in general in order to extract Jerusalem, because they know that if they succeed to take Jerusalem out of Israel, many Israelis will lose their hope and will lose their energy and will run away. And this way they have the whole country for themselves if they only succeed to take Jerusalem. And they actually take advantage of the fact that still the world has not yet recognized Jerusalem as the Jewish capital until this very day, and the embassies are out of Jerusalem. And this actually is undermining the chances of peace. In my view, if you want to support peace, recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and this way the Arabs will give up on getting rid of us altogether.
Aaron, do you have a question? I mean,
Actually, I do. I have a burning question in the back of my mind here is that, you're saying that, first of all, UNESCO, you said, was backed by Qatari money, or in large part. Okay, so and then the second thing that I have to say is that over the past weekend, we know Danny Danon, speaking at the UN in New York, said he called for the dissolving of UNESCO and other anti-Israel biased organizations, such as that. Now, with the current situation with Qatar happening and calls for UNESCO to be dissolved, is that a possibility? Is there some sort of action that might be taken against UNESCO, given all these kind of
You're going to have to give us a short answer on this because we're running
UNESCO,
low
just
on
like
time.
many other organizations affiliated to the United Nations, became highly politicized, run by the Arab and the Islamic world because they have a majority there, and they actually are used or abused as the long arm of the Arab and the Islamic countries in order to bash all the others, including Christians in Europe. Look, UNESCO had nothing to do, did nothing. When the Islamists in Afghanistan blew up the two Buddha statues in Bamiyan in the 90s, they did nothing. When the Islamic State destroyed the remnants of the Babylonians and the Assyrians in Syria and in Iraq during the last few years, only Israel is the problem of the world heritage. Okay, this is how politicized this organization is.
All right, well, we've run out of time. We can talk about this all day long, I think. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Kudel. All right, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been facing several investigations, and now his wife, Sarah, might be indicted over misuse of state funds. State prosecutor Shai Nitzan is reportedly on board with indicting Sarah Netanyahu, according to Israel's Channel 10 News. The prime minister's wife has been accused of using state funds to order food supplies for personal use, as well as to hire a caretaker for her aging father. The prime minister's office says that the news station's disgraceful report is being timed to coincide with the visit of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Israel. A Netanyahu spokesman is also saying it'll be an even greater embarrassment if Sarah Netanyahu is indicted over a few cups of tea that a caretaker gave to Mrs. Netanyahu's late father on his deathbed. Sarah Netanyahu was questioned for hours last December over the allegations, and the former manager of the prime minister's residence has received almost $50,000 in damages after suing her for racist remarks and other abusive treatment. It looks like it'll be a bumpy ride ahead for the prime minister's family. There's been a big turnover in the Israeli Labor Party now that former party leader Isaac Herzog has fallen behind in the primaries and will not be making it to the second round. Former party leader Amir Peretz and Labor newcomer Avi Gabay are currently in a runoff for party leadership, and ILTV's Max Keisler has more details. Max?
This is a party that was in power for 3 decades and hasn't been in power since 2001. A child who was born the last time Labor was in power, they're an adult now, so they really need a winning formula to get out of the opposition. Maybe it's Amir Peretz, he already had his chance to run the party. Maybe it's Avi Gabay, he did just get an endorsement from former Prime Minister Ehud Barak.
Well, let's check out your report to see the details.
Former Israeli Defense Minister and Labour Party leader Amir Peretz has received 32% of the vote in Labour Party primaries, putting him in the lead. Peretz says he's convinced he will win in a second round, after which he will replace Netanyahu. The mysterious Avi Gabay finished in second with 27% of the vote. Gabay has no history in the Labour Party and is not an active Knesset member. He was appointed to the Netanyahu government in 2015 as part of Moshe Kachlon's Kulanu party, but he never ran in an election, and it's unclear if he'd even be allowed to serve as head of the opposition if he wins the primary. Labour Party members are disgruntled with former leader Isaac Herzog, who they see as overly friendly to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Herzog reportedly held secret coalition talks with Netanyahu last year, although they came to nothing.
It's been more than 2 decades since a bombing at a Jewish community center in Argentina killed 83 people, but new DNA evidence is pointing to an Iranian role in the bombing, which backs up the accusations of the deceased special prosecutor Alberto Nisman, who was killed just hours before he was set to testify. The AMIA Special Investigation Unit of the Argentinian General Prosecution has announced that they've uncovered a genetic profile from the preserved remains of the bombing, and it doesn't belong to any known victims. There's a strong possibility that the genetic profile matches that of the Hezbollah suicide bomber Ibrahim Bero, who is thought to have carried out the attack. Bero's body was never identified, and until today, his brother claims that he died fighting in Lebanon. But Special Prosecutor Alberto Nisman believed that Bero was responsible. Nisman believed that former Argentinian President Cristina Kirchner had collaborated with the Iranian government to cover up the Iranian and Hezbollah role in the bombing. The prosecutor was found dead in his apartment just hours before he was set to testify, leaving many to claim that he was assassinated before he could speak out. It seems like Israel isn't taking its own advice when it comes to green living, because despite all of the advances that the Holy Land has made towards a cleaner earth, lots of factories in Israel are still dramatically damaging the environment. LTV's Aaron Porce returns to the studio to tell us what's going on. Aaron?
So the Israeli Environmental Protection Agency has just published its 5th annual environmental impact report, and it's not looking very good. The ministry indexed over 1,000 different companies and 100 different factories across Israel and awarded them points based on their impact on the environment, their adherence to the law, things like that.
And this is a tiny little country that we live in, so...
This is a tiny little country, and yet, I mean, my report is about the worst offenders, the top 10. They make the red list.
And this comes just after an acid spill here in Israel. All right, well, let's check out your report.
At the top of the list with a total of 487 points sits Oil Refineries Ltd in Haifa. To put into perspective just how bad the Haifa pollution is, the Ministries of Health and of Environmental Protection has already been conducting a separate inquiry into the high pollution-linked cancer rates throughout the city. Coming in second place of the top 10 worst offenders was the Paz Oil Refinery in Ashdod with 366 points, followed closely by Gadiv Petrochemical Industries with 362. In related news, as if scheduled to coincide with the pollution index, toxic and acidic wastewater has just flooded through the wall of a reservoir over at a phosphate factory, when the wall partially collapsed. 100,000 cubic meters or 26.4 million gallons of the waste flowed into the Ashalim riverbed, leaving behind a giant pool not far from the Dead Sea, staining and scorching the earth wherever it went.
All the plants and the animals that were in the Wadi during this flood, it's tsunami, it's a big tsunami of acid flood, probably got a very, very high damage, probably dead. And in the long-term damage, we have a problem of soil damage and large functional ecological problem.
The Environmental Protection Ministry has since opened a criminal investigation into the plant's owner, Rotem Amfer, as well as the parent company, Israel Chemicals, or ICL.
1 in every 20 people in Israel is a vegan, meaning that Israel has the most vegans per capita in the world. But strangely, Israelis haven't had their own 100% vegan supermarket in the country until now. The Gala Yarok vegan supermarket just opened this week in the Shuka Carmel market in Tel Aviv. The Green Wave market has around 4,000 vegan products in its 100 square meter space, from green lentils and vegan cheese to vegan TV dinners and protein bars. The owners say that the store is a safe space for vegans, and they'll be stocking products from the strictly vegan American Black Hebrew Israelite community in Dimona. Some of those products include vegan ice cream, tofu and seitan, and vegan pastrami. Many of these products are, as of now, exclusive to Green Wave, so if you're looking to find vegan friends living a like-minded lifestyle, you might be able to find them at Shuka Carmel. But if you can't make it over there, you should be all right. Most Tel Aviv restaurants have vegan options on their menu, and many Israeli specialties like hummus and roasted eggplant are naturally vegan. Still, for those of you who take the lifestyle seriously, it's nice to have a place dedicated to the movement. It's hard to sit still, but our next guest, Danny Catrin, may be an expert at getting you to do just that, since he specializes in photographing portraits that try and capture each individual's uniqueness. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So we just have to schedule our next portrait, but I'd like to hear, how long have you been taking pictures?
I started at the age of 7, but
Wow.
many years. I just got a present for my 7th birthday, a Kodak box camera.
Wow.
And many years after, I became a professional photographer after 27 years working in a bank. And I thought that this time I'm going to fulfill my dream, and I just did.
Absolutely. I mean, these photos, I'm loving what I'm seeing so far.
These are my photos.
I wish I could have seen your first pictures from when you were 7-year-old on that Kodak camera as well. But I think these will suffice. They're amazing. And I see that, I mean, you're dressed up in several of these portraits.
Usually we have 2 to 3 studio days during the month, where we gather 5 to 6 persons every scheduled studio.
Interesting.
And we take photos, and
well,
then
I
get crazy with my makeup lady.
Yeah.
So we do it.
You kind of make it's not the typical family portraits that you see coming out of the studio for sure.
No, I usually do business portraits and portraits for everything and every target, like Facebook, LinkedIn, etc.
Yeah.
But these are the special things that we do in between the intermissions.
Absolutely. Well,
That's
I mean,
for
it's very special.
The
So,
visit of the Indian Prime Minister. It was
yes,
Mahatma Gandhi.
And he's
This is
interesting.
the Adams family.
And
someone
now you're
asked
going to have
me
to do a
whether
portrait of
it
the
was
latest
Photoshop.
Israeli
No, it was
Prime
not
Minister.
Photoshop. I was painted.
What is your inspiration? What would you say inspires you the most?
People. I love people. I think people is a whole world.
Absolutely.
And what I do is I don't just photograph them. I try to take out what they are. And it's not just sitting and photographing. It's the interaction between me and the person who sits in front of me.
There's no denying that Israel has been on the map lately when it comes to the international success of our favorite celebs, from the worldwide adored Gal Gadot to our recently engaged Daniela Pick. Now, ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh is here again to update us on another Israeli star who's definitely worth keeping up with. Emmanuel?
Yes. Israel has been hot when it comes to exposure and headlines in the American media. And Israeli basketball star Omri Casspi has just signed the Golden State Warriors for a modest $2.1 million contract.
No big deal.
No big deal. So let's see more details in my report. The Golden State Switch will be the 6th NBA team for the 29-year-old Casspi during his 8 seasons in the league. He started off in Sacramento, where tensions with coach David Jorger quickly helped him transfer over to the New Orleans, where he unfortunately got injured during his first game. By the end of that season, he was signed with Minnesota, which didn't leave much of a mark on his career, and that finally led him to the Warriors. It's no surprise that Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant signed a new contract with the Warriors over the summer as well, making this team seem like they could win another championship. But guess we'll have to wait and see.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Let's see if you can all guess. It's something that's used for decoration in almost every event. It can be an accessory in one's hair, and when it blooms, its colors leave you speechless. Figure it out? Yes, our word for today is perach, which means flower. Emmanuel, what's your favorite perach?
So my favorite perach is an orchid. They last a long time. They're very beautiful. You could get them in all different colors. But like you said before, I usually send perachim or flowers to a loved one, or I like to receive them on Valentine's Day.
Keep that one in
mind.
mind.
Very romantic, yes. What about you?
Well, it's hard for me to choose one flower because, listen, you can see all these beautiful perachim behind us.
Perachim.
But I do love the cliche vered, which is a rose, or vradim, roses.
Yes.
And, you know, I've been thinking about it recently. One of the reasons I actually like orchids, like you said, so much is because that type of perach actually lasts for a long time. It can last up to 6
Right.
months, whereas a rose, a vered, can die pretty quickly.
3 days, something
in
like that.
3 days.
Right. I mean, it depends how much you water it and whatever. But my parents used to do something really cute. They used to press the flowers in between books and keep them there for a few weeks, and you take them out. They're nice pressed memories of the flowers you received.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that our prachim here in Israel do well over the weekend because the weather is looking kind of hot.
I hope.
So let's check out the weather forecast, my friends. Tonight the sky should be partly cloudy to cloudy with a low of 77 or 25 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow you can expect some more clouds and a drop in temperatures with a high of 86 or 30 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.52 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for watching.